What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel as a preview show for Sunday's semi-final at Hampden against Rangers. I'm delighted to be joined for the second time this week by Chris. Thanks for coming back on, Chris. It's been a tumultuous week, of course, after Monday night's events. Martin O'Neill coming in to take charge, the Falkirk game, and now that that's out the way, all eyes can turn to this semi-final. So they're always big games, semi-finals, and particularly against Rangers. First of all, I suppose, what did you make of what you saw from the team the other night there against Falkirk?
Well, I think it would be an obvious thing to say that the performance was at least better. I think the speed at which we got forward, we were more direct and purposeful, perhaps, in our passing would maybe be wording I would use, Paul. And, look, let's be objective. It's Falkirk at home. That should be an automatic 3 points anytime. But given everything that's gone on at the club this year, both on and off the pitch, and just the tumultuous nature of the 48 hours that preceded the game, I think we can all be very happy with 3 points, 4 goals, clean sheet, and just the eye test telling us that, okay, O'Neill was able to come in, and like I really liked his commentary reminding them that they're winners, right? And that's what we have been. We have been serial winners for the better part of 25 years, Paul. Like that, since Martin O'Neill came in the summer of 2000, we have absolutely dominated Scottish football, winning 17 of 24 titles, 6 trebles. Like it's been a remarkable time. But like with any club, you go through periods of turmoil, you go through periods of poor play. We saw this in the COVID season, right? It just the wheels fell off completely. So as much as I have a lot of issue with what Dermot Desmond has said and done, I will commend him for at least bringing in somebody that can provide immediate stability to the club, provide the motivation that perhaps the players have been missing, get a bit of self-confidence, and acknowledging that we're missing a number of first-team players. Let's see what the performance is like on the pitch. So first test was Falkirk. Great. Got the job done. I really don't know what to think about the game on Sunday. Like the parallels between the two football clubs are quite remarkable right now. So it will be very interesting, and I know we're gonna pick that apart in the next few minutes. Happy O'Neill is the person they picked. And with Sean Maloney providing, some coaching, I think it's all you could really ask for. And how long that lasts is also going to be very interesting, because obviously the rumor mill is rife right now. Ipswich town manager, interest in Knutson, it's just going to be rumor mill central until a permanent new manager is appointed, Paul.
Yeah, there's lots of talk, as you would imagine, in terms of who the next permanent manager will be. To go back to Wednesday night, I think if you set aside the shambles and the embarrassment of this situation and how things have unfolded this season up until and including Monday, Tuesday, there is something nostalgic and cool about seeing Martin O'Neill there in the dugout in a Celtic tracksuit celebrating goals again. It's like as like going back in time.
He doesn't leap as high as he used to.
No, not quite. But it was nice to see he's still got a wee leap in him. It was good to see that from a nostalgia point of view, but I do think while that it did look like we played a bit quicker, we played a bit more directly. It'd be remiss of us to think that was like tactical genius implemented over the course of 24 hours, absolute maximum. And I think again, the being Falkirk at home, it is a game you're expected to win. No doubt that there probably was a mood lifted, a sort of cloud lifted, because I think, as I said, the situation was getting away from us under Brendan Rodgers. It looked like there had been a negative energy hanging around coming through the summer, and as we started the season, things were generally getting worse, and so was the performance level. I think there was a wee undercurrent of chaotic elements to the game the other night, which you can get away with playing at a level of opposition like that at home. I think we will see it tested in some of the bigger games, maybe starting with this one on Sunday. I think it's very difficult, Chris, to evaluate where this Celtic team is at. You alluded to it there. Martin O'Neill's just come in this week. It's a situation which has shocked everybody, the players included. I listened to Callum McGregor's press conference today. I think he spoke very well. I think that's the first thing to point out. As the captain of the club, it would have been a difficult interview for him because he had to face the questions about Brendan Rodgers when he found out. He also spoke very highly both of Brendan Rodgers but also of John Kennedy, which is important because I still think it's worth underlining that the fractious nature that you only assume of the events the other night meant that John Kennedy's thanks for everything that he did at Celtic was half a sentence in a very blunt statement after decades of service at the club, and Callum McGregor spoke very, very highly of him and the work that he's done through being an assistant to multiple managers, and everything he's contributed to the success the club have had and stuff like that. So I think the captain spoke very well today, but I think you could tell there was that element of shock to it for the players, and I think that this week will have been difficult for them. The game against Falkirk would have given them sort of clear heads to just focus on that, and now they've got that out of the way. All the attention will turn to Sunday, but I think it's really difficult for us as supporters. Usually the things you go to are how are we performing, what's the form been like. I know that the old cliche is the form goes out the window in this fixture, but if you go back 12 to 18 months, probably 18 months ago, it was sticking to form. We were favourites going into the games, we were winning them more often than not. But for the last 12 months now, the cup final, League Cup final last year excluded, where we won in penalties, we haven't beaten Rangers in 90 minutes, coming up for 14 months. And there was a couple of games last season where Rangers were in a mess. They had a really poor campaign. They sacked a manager. They brought in an interim manager. We were favourites going into these games, and we lost a couple of them. So it's really difficult to look at the usual signs that you look to in this game because we don't have much form to go on. We don't know what the deal is with the interim management set up, and this Celtic team's record in big games recently isn't very good.
This video is brought to you in partnership with FPro, the ultimate football training app. Winter is fast approaching, and in Scotland that means long dark nights and frozen pitches, but with FPro your child can take their game to the next level. FPro guides you through over 110 professional exercises to help you achieve technical excellence and master the fundamentals of the game that every player needs. FPro is used by players from the top academies across Europe, and it only takes 20 minutes a day to see real progress. You can track your performance, compete against your pals in the app to move up the leaderboard, and earn rewards as you improve as well. Whether it's inside or out in the garden, the FPro dribbling mat and app can help you maximise your skills. So if you have a son or a daughter, a niece, a nephew that's football daft and you're looking for Christmas gift inspiration, FPro is the one. You can get 20% off with the code Celtic20 via the link in the description of this video. Thank you. Let's get back to it.
No, I mean, Paul, you have just surmised that absolutely perfectly. To be honest, I can't add much more to that. So what I would say is the only thing that I guess gives me a little hope is that if there was one man that you wanted going into a game with all the circumstances that have led up to it, to provide a motivational platform and to remind them how good they actually are, it's Martin O'Neill, right? Like that's one thing I can be confident about, is that the team talk and the preparation for the game on Sunday, Paul, will be layered with motivational words, wisdom, and this is where Callum McGregor, as the club's captain, to your point, can really stand up and be accountable, right, to the rest of the players. Like, it's really about, we are a good team. We got off track, but we have good players. Let's go out and remind Rangers and the rest of Scotland that we can still play, regardless of the fact that we're going to be missing some key first team players. But that's the one thing that gives me hope, Paul, is that Martin O'Neill, despite his age at 73, I am quite confident his wisdom with words and his ability to spin. I mean, for crying out loud, he made Bobby Pettit look like a world-class left winger. Signed Didier Agat for £50,000, and the man was incredible. He has the unbelievable ability to make players believe that they are wonderful footballers. And some of them were. Like, we had some great players under his time. So that's what I think will be a benefit to us, because for all the other things you mentioned, there's no form going into this game, Paul. Really, for either team. Yes, Rangers have had a couple of wins under Danny Rowe, and they've got that kind of new manager bounce, but their quality of squad and quality of player is not better than ours, at least when we've got a first 11 that we can pick from. So that's going to be a bit of an equalizer. We're missing CCV at the back. We're missing Alistair Johnson on the right. Doesn't look like Hatate might not feature for a little while here, which I don't think is a bad thing. And obviously up front, we may or may not have Maeda because he was only able to come off the bench. So it's going to be very interesting. You are absolutely correct. The fact that we've gone, and we talked about this off air before we came on, the fact that we've gone 14 months without beating a very poor Rangers team is criminal. Absolutely criminal. And then we were also talking off air, we've not won a big game since Young Boys, and prior to that, Leipzig. So that's been almost 11 or 12 months. That's also criminal. Like, no disrespect to Aberdeen. We should have absolutely handled them in the Scottish Cup final. No excuse. No excuse. But we didn't show up, and they won, and they deserve to win. I'm not taking anything away from them, but we have not won a big game where there is pressure and an obligation that we expect you to show up. We haven't seen it. So whether the circumstances of the last 72 plus hours will allow us to get to that level of performance, Paul, remains to be seen. But I'll just bookend it again by saying Martin O'Neill is the one man I feel like can give the players a sense of confidence before they cross the white line on Sunday.
Aye, listening to Martin O'Neill the last few days, he's been, I mean, typically himself, really sharp, loads of humour in his answers with the press. I thought his post-match presser after the Falkirk game the other night was priceless. He's almost like apologetic that he's here, that he finds himself here. And I think when you look at the nature of the questions he was asked today and the pre-match for this game, a load of them, and it's maybe typical of sort of mainstream journalists, a load of them are just about like misty-eyed stuff about the 6-2 game, and again, like looking back to when he was first here and his memories and experiences of the fixture, and like for what that means going into this game, it's really very, very little. I think they were trying to get some news out of him in terms of where some injured players are at, and like Iheanacho and Tierney. Yeah. It was relatively vague. Even I think there was maybe one question around trying to evaluate like what he's seen in training the last couple of days. Again, there's not a lot to take from that, but in terms of the team selection choices that he will have, obviously he's not going to give anything away, but it will be difficult for him just having come in the door and not really having a full understanding of what all of the players in the squad can offer. The big question is, you mentioned Daizen Maeda already, came back off the bench. He did name check Daizen Maeda today in terms of getting that 20-25 minute cell a night, being in contention. Johnny Kenny scores 2 goals. We've talked a lot this season about Johnny Kenny probably being short of where you need a Celtic striker to be. I don't think that's the most controversial statement in the world. But Daizen Maeda has not performed at all, and he had his head turned in the summer, and he looked a bit disillusioned with life before he got injured after that Motherwell game, despite scoring that last-minute winner. So do you think, given his history in the fixture, what he can give you if he's in the right mood, that Daizen Maeda will come back in for Johnny Kenny?
My gut feeling is if he's fit enough to play 60 minutes, Paul, he should start the game. And my rationale for that is if the game was to go to extra time, either way, he's going to get 60 minutes. So if you bring him on at 60 minutes in the game, he's playing the last 30 minutes, and then he's got extra time and he's available for penalties. Or do you start the game with him and you hope that he can find that form that he has shown in this fixture? For me personally, if I had the opportunity, I would pick him. I'd pick him to start the game. If he's fit enough to play 60 minutes, I would play him. And then I'd be happy to see Kenny come on to finish out the last 30 minutes of the game if we're carrying a lead, or obviously if we're chasing the game. You know, I don't know if Shin Yamada is going to be available. It's hard to say, but that's obviously probably the big decision, I think, because I think the rest of the team will pick itself.
What about in midfield? Big call. Well, I say a big call, not really on his performances, but Hatate came out the other night and he went with Engels and Negrin. So do you think that's no-brainer?
That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer for me. And look, this might sound also crazy to say, but I think it's a no-brainer that Sirachi plays, to be honest. Kieran has looked a shadow of him of his former self. Like he doesn't so far has not provided the same impact that we saw at Arsenal in his spell, and obviously in his first spell at Celtic. Like, I'm not sure if he's still not 100%. I know Martin said he was carrying a bit of a niggle, so that's probably why he sat out. But again, there's somebody that's performed extremely well in this fixture before, and is that motivation going to maybe improve his performance levels? You could make an argument for that, but I thought Sirachi was probably the best player on the park the other night. I mean, I know all three of you gave him man of the match in the post-match reaction, Paul, so it would be very harsh to leave him out. I was also really happy to see Trusty come back in. This whole nonsense of having two left predominantly footed players not being able to play together. Play your best players. Trusty has on many occasions shown that he can play top games at the top level. At way to Atalanta is a prime example last year. Absolutely magnificent in that game. And he's had other games. So I think Forrest will retain his spot on the right. I thought he played well the other night. And I suspect Ralston will play. And I think that's really the only decision is the left back and up front. I think the rest of the team will probably pick itself unless there's a surprise of somebody being available that we wouldn't be expecting.
Yeah, he did mention Alistair Johnston today, but I don't think there's any danger of him being involved. I think, Chris, it'll be interesting to see what he does in those key positions, but I agree. I think you're right. Most of it is pretty self-explanatory. In terms of Rangers, they obviously have a new manager. I say new manager as well. We've still got an interim at the minute, but they've had a lot of change this season. The last game between the teams was probably the worst game of football in history. 0-0, barely any clear-cut chances across the entire 90 minutes. For them coming into this, again, not a lot of forum to go off of. I did see their game against Brann, which was Rule's first game in charge. I haven't seen any of their last two games, the 3-1 win over Kilmarnock and the 1-0 win at Easter Road the other night. I think from what I've heard, they are maybe a bit better against the ball in terms of how they're trying to press teams, which makes sense with Danny Rule's history and being German and that sort of gegenpressing mentality. So if you think about Brendan Rodgers being in charge and the way we were playing, the way we were passing the ball about at the back, you think that could be a concern for us if they are pressing a bit better. But you think that we will be a bit more adaptable and will go a bit more direct and in behind if we have to and try and get them turned towards their own goal. I'm not talking about blasting the ball at the pitch here. I'm talking about maybe playing some diagonals, maybe missing a pass out to get there a bit more quickly, and give Rangers something different to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that could be a combination of maybe Srirachi coming a bit more inside to give you that overload in the midfield. Like that's where Taylor excelled under Ange Postecoglou and even Brendan as well, to be honest. So I feel like that's an option. I have no doubt Rangers will press us a lot more, to your point, given Danny Roll's style of play. So getting around that press and getting McGregor on the ball in those pockets of space, if you can beat that press, then I think that will allow us to get up the field. And I think just if put the chaos of the Falkirk game aside, because I agree there were periods of chaos in that first 20 minutes or so. If we can get around that press, I think there's opportunities for us to hurt Rangers in the final third. And that's really why I would play Maeda, because his movement off the ball is excellent. And if we can get to the byline, Nygren I get it. He needs a lot of chances to score, but I would much rather see a player getting into the box and being in those positions to actually have the chances. And I know he splits opinion a little bit, Paul, but he's got quite a few goals already this year from midfield.
And he should have more.
And he should have more. Like you could
he gets so many chances.
Yeah, you could make an argument he could be at 14 or 15 goals by now. Right? He has absolutely gotten himself into a lot of tremendous positions. So be curious to see if we can get Forrest, Ralston on the right and Srirachi, if it's him, and Tanecki on the left. Like I want to see Tanecki just go right at, whether it's Tavernier or whoever plays right back for Rangers, just go right at him. Just right at him. Make it difficult for them, and make them get out of shape. And that really will be an interesting part of the game. And just to see how O'Neill operates being back in this fixture will be very, very interesting. I mean, obviously a tremendous record in this fixture. Only Brendan Rodgers has a better record. But in terms of overall winning percentages as Celtic managers, O'Neill is still number one on that list. So there's a lot to be said for his experience both in this fixture and in the dugout. But I would think both sets of supporters will be nervous about the game, but also both sets of supporters probably feel there's a legitimate chance to win the game and get to a final, right? I think that's probably, I know that's my feeling going into the game, Paul, is like, I don't know what we're going to see, but I know if we play well, we could win the game, but also if we don't play well, and that might sound like such a cliche and an obvious thing to say, but just given the lack of form or consistent form for both teams this year, that could be very much what we see. I mean, I know Rangers won the other night, but Hibs had so many chances to score in that game and missed a penalty very late. Otherwise, Rangers would be sitting 7 points behind us and 13 points behind Hearts right now.
It's so difficult. I mean, I don't think we'll get any idea what the team is going to produce, particularly given not just the form and the way we've played this season, but the fact that we're missing three or four guaranteed starters as well. It is very much a cobbled together Celtic team. When you look at that 11 the other night, there's numerous players in it that you just, if you go back 12 months, you'd never expect them to be starting important games for Celtic. But we are where we find ourselves. Just on that point, you mentioned there about Callum McGregor. If you go back to the game at Tynecastle last weekend, the best spell we had in the game was after the Hearts opening goal. And Callum McGregor was getting space and dictating the game. He got us back in the game with a brilliant equaliser. And it was a 15-20 minute spell where he was getting on the ball a lot and dictating play. And in this fixture as well, that is when we've had the most joy. I think even back to the 1-0 game at Ibrox a couple of seasons ago where Kyogo scored that brilliant volley. Rangers got it all wrong and Callum McGregor just ran the game. But we've talked about our record in this fixture recently, and stopping the supply to Callum McGregor has it basically stops Celtic functioning, and that is a problem that we need to solve, because it can't just be that if a team stops the float of Callum McGregor, then we're snookered and we can't find a way to play. So there's no doubt that given Rangers, that despite it's under different managers, given that Rangers have had some results against us recently, they know that they have to stop the ball going into Callum McGregor. So it's up to us to find a solution to that, because if we can't...
I have no doubt there will be more. I do agree with Martin that it would be nice to see them done in that type of manner versus inside the stadium affecting the psyche of the team. I think Martin's onto something there. I think there's ways in which we can keep up that pressure, but just fully back the team. Like, there was undoubtedly a section of the fans, Paul, that wanted Brendan Rodgers to go. Whether it was now or at the end of the season, there was definitely a split in the fan base. However, let's back the team under the interim management group. Let's back the team if a permanent manager is appointed. But let's keep the pressure on Dermot Desmond to make the changes that are needed within the hierarchy of the club, starting with the chairman, the CEO, the CFO. Let's get new members of the board in place. Let's get a proper sporting structure in place. Then we would all feel, okay, you listened and you're actually doing something about what's important to the fans. It's not just the results on the pitch, which we all acknowledge have been unbelievable for a long, long time. And we've been blessed to have the success that we have. But we're in a position of strength still with our financial advantage, which could have been pressed on even more if we'd made the Champions League again this year. We could have stretched our financial gap to 60-70 million over Rangers, but we didn't. So here we are. We're dealing with the consequences of a poorly run football club in many facets, and we need to see change. And as long as we keep up that pressure, which I fully support, but let's back the team on the pitch, but put pressure on the board off the pitch, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I said, and as we've covered recently, I don't think this campaign for action on these things and changes at boardroom level, as you say, isn't going to go away. There seems to be some ridiculous takes online about, like, the protest the other night being anything related to Brendan Rodgers leaving. It's not about that. It's about the things that have happened this summer, what's been happening at boardroom level, the nature of the statement the other night, not because Brendan Rodgers left. It's not a protest to have Brendan Rodgers back. It's a protest about how the board are running the club, and they are going to continue. But hopefully the club are starting to listen, and we're going to get the much needed change at boardroom level, which again is also long overdue. That's it for tonight. Thanks to Chris for joining me. I will see you tomorrow with the starting 11 prediction for the game. I wasn't even going to ask you for a prediction, Chris, because it's absolutely impossible to predict this. But we'll take 2-1 Celtic. That's it for tonight. Like the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.